Hi, good afternoon. My name is Janet, and thanks for taking the time off to join today's SEGC IHL virtual mass briefing session. I'm from the Energy Market Authority. Today's agenda will be sharing with you more about the SET, Singapore Energy Transition, followed by more details regarding the competition. Last but not least, we will have a Q&A session where I'll be joined by the company's representatives and we'll be clarifying your questions regarding the competition and the problem statements. So throughout the entire briefing session, if you have any question, feel free to use the Q&A Q&A function to actually post your question. For those who are unfamiliar with the Energy Market Authority, we are actually a lead agency for energy matters in Singapore. We hold three main roles, one of it as the regulator of Singapore electricity, gas, and district cooling industries. We are also the power system operator, as well as a lead agency for energy development. This means that we actually focus on developing long-term strategies and plans for Singapore, as well as fostering a dynamic energy sector. Beyond the local context, we also drive Singapore relations with key international players in the energy arena. Last but not least, we also drive the development of a pipeline of competent local manpower for the energy sector. So this is actually one of the reasons why we actually organize this competition to actually engage youth like yourself. As you can see from the chart on the right, you may also be familiar of how electricity are transmitted from the power plants to the power grid and then to your schools and your homes. So climate change is not an unfamiliar topic. It's actually an existential threat, and Singapore is actually committed to reducing our carbon emissions and advancing our global climate action. The government launched the Singapore Green Plan 2030 to advance our national agenda on sustainable development. There are 5 pillars in total, but today we will zoom into the energy reset pillar, as it is the most relevant to the competition. It actually outlines our commitments to use cleaner energy and increase our energy efficiency to lower carbon footprint. So as you can see from the diagram over here, it actually includes using cleaner energy vehicles and looking into greener infrastructure and buildings. Last but not least, having sustainable towns and districts, as well as increasing our energy resources. As you can see from the statistic on the right, the power sector contributes about 40% of Singapore's carbon emissions. This means that we play a significant role, and if we actually decarbonize our sector, it will have downstream impacts on other sectors and make an impact in lowering Singapore carbon emissions. However, the process of decarbonization is not a straightforward process. Every decision that we make would require us to consider the energy trilemma, where we balance the need for energy that is reliable, clean, as well as affordable. There are 3 factors under the energy trilemma, first one being environmental sustainability. This includes areas such as catalyzing clean energy R&D and experimentation of new areas that we have not been focusing on in the past. We also look into energy efficiency measures to manage and reduce the energy demand. Second factor would be economic competitiveness, which is also about liberalizing the energy market. Some of you may have heard of the open electricity market, where over the last few years, consumers are able to choose their own preferred retailers. It also ensures a level playing field in competitive sector. Third is the energy security, where we actually diversify our energy sources, as well as to develop and train the human capital to ensure a steady supply of competent workers in the energy sector. To briefly illustrate the energy trilemma, I'll use an example of coal. So in the past, Singapore used to burn coal as it's actually abundant in supply and it's cheap. So it meets the economic competitiveness as well as the energy security factors. However, burning coal produces a large amount of carbon emissions, thus it is not environmentally sustainable. As you can see from the pictures, over the last 50 years, Singapore energy sector has come a long way, moving away from oil-powered generating plants to cleaner sources such as natural gas. Moving forward, we will also continue to adopt more clean energy sources to actually diversify our fuel mix and to lower our carbon emissions. Electricity is a key enabler. Not only does it support our day-to-day activities, like powering our handphones and our laptops, it also helps to power other essential sectors such as healthcare. Our energy future will be guided by a multi-pronged strategy that known as the Singapore Energy Transition, where it actually outlines 4 switches to reduce our carbon emissions through supply, grid, and demand measures. The first switch is natural gas. Natural gas will continue to be Singapore's dominant fuel source in the near future, as it takes time to scale up other alternative resources and build up technology and workforce capabilities. Today, more than 90% of Singapore electricity is generated from natural gas. We import piped natural gas from our neighbors such as Malaysia and Indonesia. We also have a liquefied natural gas terminal on Jurong Island that actually allow us to import natural gas around the world. These also help to enhance our energy security by diversifying our supply source. Moving on to the second switch, solar. Solar is our most viable renewable option. Apart from HDB rooftops, we are constantly looking at different ways to maximize solar deployments, including installing solar on vertical surfaces as well as water bodies. You may have heard of the floating solar farm that was launched at Tengah Reservoir in 2021. Singapore's goal is to actually deploy at least 2 gigawatt peak of solar by 2030, and this can help power around 350,000 households. However, we will need to manage solar intermittency if we want our power system to be always reliable. We do want a scenario whereby you plug in your devices and our electricity is actually intermittent. So whenever it rains or there's a cloud cover, it's actually important that we actually complement our supply source with the use of energy storage system. So ESS works like large-scale battery that can help to store excess solar power and harness it for later use. So when it's sunny, we can actually store all the excess solar energy, and then when it's raining or cloudy, we can actually draw the energy from it. Our goal is to deploy at least 200 megawatt peak of ESS beyond 2025. The third switch will be the regional power grids, where the third switch will be electricity imports, where we are looking to actually import electricity from our neighboring countries, our neighboring neighbors. And this actually helps to diversify our energy sources, and we can actually tap on our neighbors' geographical advantages and import cleaner renewables such as hydroelectric energy. With electricity imports and working with our neighbors, we are looking to import up to 4 gigawatts of electricity by 2035. This will actually help to supply around 30% of our electricity supply. The fourth area would be low carbon alternatives such as hydrogen, geothermal, and nuclear. We are trying to do more research and feasibility studies to see how we can learn and implement these technologies in Singapore context to actually achieve further environmental sustainability by reducing our carbon emissions, as well as to diversify our fuel mix and enhancing our energy security. The next section, I would like to share more about the Manpower Initiatives done by the EMA. So you may find some of the activities or initiatives familiar because we actually done a few of the outreach program at your school. We actually categorize it into 2 areas, outreach and attraction, as well as work plan and retention development. Under outreach and attraction, we have initiatives and events, as well as scholarships that you may actually find it familiar. So if you're actually from the ITE or Polytechnic, we actually have the Energy Industry Scholarship. And if you're actually from the university tier, we actually have the Singapore Industry Scholarship that is actually applicable to you. Both of the scholarship application cycles usually open at the beginning of the year until March. We also have education videos developed by MOE and EMA, which you can check them out on our website. We also have other events like career fairs where we go to different schools to share more about the energy transition as well as the career prospect that you can actually look forward to if you join the energy sector. We also have a permanent exhibit at Science Center that is actually interactive, and you can actually check them out if you're interested. We host competition at events just like SEGC Youth. So the grand final of this IHL category, as well as the SEGC Awards ceremony, will be held at Youth XU in end October. So just to share a little bit more, Youth XU is actually our flagship event that we actually hold annually, and it actually aims to engage youth like yourself to learn more about energy-related issues, and it also provides a platform where you can hear from political holders as well as industry players. So you get a good sense of what it's like working in the energy sector in the future. Under retention and development, it's actually more relatable to individuals when you actually join the energy sector. So for those interested, we have leadership programs, work study program, as well as job skills insight that was developed recently to actually showcase what are the skill set required in the clean energy sector. So a big part of our work is to see how we can actually train and develop our existing workforce to take on the new and emerging sources. In the next part of this briefing, we will be touching more about the SEGC competition details, and this is likely what that's actually more interesting, and you'll find out more about the industry representative today, who will be sharing more about the problem statement later. So for this SEGC IHL category, it's actually the second year that we actually launched this competition. So for this year, we have actually partnered with EDP Renewables and Vision Digital and Tuas Power to actually come up with different problem statements in different areas that you can actually take a look and choose which of the problem statements that you wish to tackle. So this competition is open to all undergraduates from local IHLs, from the ITE, polytechnics, and autonomous universities. There will be mentoring and training opportunities for the shortlisted teams. So the most innovative ideas will stand a chance to win 10K in cash prizes for your solutions. So the grand champion team will be awarded $6,000, and the first runner-up team will be having $4,000 in cash. So these are the problem statements that you have probably already seen from our competition website when you register for this mass briefing. So each of the problem statement here actually focus on different topics, like what I mentioned earlier. So for this problem statement, EDP Renewables is looking to maximize solar deployment, and Vision Digital is looking at deploying smart grid solutions. Tuas Power is looking into areas of energy storage systems and digitalization. So without further ado, I will pass the time now to the industry themselves to share more in details about what they're looking out for in their problem statement, as well as to give you a bit more context on what each of the problem statements is about. So may I now invite Ying Hui from EDP Renewables to share more, please.
Hi, thanks, Jeanette. Hi, everyone. I'm Ying Hui from EDP Renewables. We are a global renewable energy developer. So we develop projects on wind, solar, and batteries. But for this problem statement, we are looking at maximizing solar energy output in cities such as Singapore. So as you know, Singapore is faced with a space constraint issue, and this is hindering us from maximizing the potential of solar energy in Singapore. As you know, rooftops is something that we are already doing, and as well as floating. But what are other areas we can develop solar on? I think I'll encourage everyone to be creative in thinking of solutions of where else can we develop solar on. And also the keyword here to look at is maximize solar energy output. So it's also not about simply looking at new places to develop solar. It's also looking at how can we maximize solar output through our existing systems. So this is another way to approach the problem statement. And yeah, I encourage everyone to think about these keywords like maximizing of solar energy potential. So the proposed solution, of course, should consider all these factors, which I won't list here. But that said, I'll still encourage everyone to be creative in thinking about potential solutions and not let some of these things hinder your thought process first. Yeah. So think about what you think might be possible before we start looking at all these constraints. And yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ingwei. This actually very informative. May I just invite Lian from Envision Digital to share more about Envision's problem statement.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. Sorry that if my video is a bit dark because I'm in a hotel room. So Envision Digital, we are actually world global leader for the AIoT platform that is achieving to achieving net zero. So currently we have under management of our IoT platform globally, we have about 556 gigawatt hour. That counts for about 20% of the entire global's renewable assets. So I think we are in a big, also a frontier of doing decarbonization for the grid for Singapore, as well as for the rest of the world. If we can successfully implement anything here, we can duplicate outside. So in terms of the problem statements that we are facing, I think here a few keywords like that we would need to emphasize. The first is that our end goal is to 100% decarbonize. That means we would need to use the renewable energy resources, which is green, which is clean. This could be the traditional sort of existing renewables like wind turbines, like solar, but must be in Singapore context. And also, you can consider something that is going to mature in next 5 years down the road. For example, hydrogen could be another resources that you can consider. So that is the first 100% renewables. The second thing that I would like to emphasize is that it had to be also software focused, because even you have the renewable generations, but you need to consider many things to make sure that the grid is smart enough and the grid is also stable enough to take into account of the renewable problems, as well as to deliver a very smooth power to the grid and to the end user. So that's the second part that you may need to consider, the software focus. And lastly, I would think that for this problem statement, particularly, we have to consider the whole grid as a whole, and also not only from generation and the consumption side, as I mentioned, you also need to think about the grid structure, that how do you make this viable technically. And also the next is to consider the economic viability. It's not something that is too expensive, but it's okay to implement, and this must be cost effective, suitable for development. And lastly, I think if there's any technical constraints in particular to those technologies, you can highlight and avoid through your solutions. Now, those are just some ideas that you can think about, and you can start with the bigger pictures of how would you like to achieve the goal. Those are some I could say beginnings that give you some ideas. Yeah, you can unleash your thinking to achieve a bigger goal. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, that's very helpful. I'm sure students actually have some head start and idea on how they can actually craft their proposals to the problem statement. May I now invite Tuas Power Jared to actually share with us more what Tuas Power is looking out for. Thank you.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. My name is Jaro from Tuas Power. Tuas Power is actually interested in looking at energy storage systems. As you know, the energy market, as it becomes more and more volatile in the future, because more renewables are coming in, perhaps more imported energy is coming into the market as well. Energy storage systems, they will play a very important part in the energy ecosystem. By doing a number of things, right? One is it injects electricity almost instantaneously into the energy grid. This buys some time for conventional energy, like the combined cycle plants, to respond, because they take a while to respond, but the ESS would then be able to provide electricity very, very quickly, and this will help to stabilize the grid. Now, the energy storage system, or the ESS as we call it, essentially plays two roles. One, I mentioned earlier, to stabilize the grid, to provide electricity when the frequency of electricity is low. But the second thing that ESS can do is in the commercial sense, in the sense that it looks at potentially capitalizing or trying to earn some difference between high prices in the market and low prices in the market. So for example, when we have volatility in the market, prices could be very, very high. And this is the time when the ESS may discharge electricity. And then when the electricity market, the price is low, it could use the opportunity to charge the ESS. So it earns the difference between the high price and the low price. So these are the two modes of operation that we can envisage ESS to do: frequency control and also commercial arbitrage, right? The challenge that we want to present to you is quite simple. There are two things we want to do. First of all, because land is very, very constrained in Singapore, we cannot have many energy systems, energy storage systems being built everywhere. So we need to find ways to optimize the construction of ESS on very, very little land that we have. That's one. So one of the challenges you need to think about is how do you condense ESS to be a lot more efficient, to be a lot more optimized, maybe in the layout, think of innovative ways to make it safe, comply with the SCDF rules, for example, to use ESS safely in Singapore, and still maximize the area that you've been given. So that's one, the physical. The second one is digitalization, right? So I mentioned earlier, we want to find the best way to make use of our energy storage systems, because there is some investment involved in it. We need to recover the cost of the investment, right? So you need to study the data on electricity prices, compare them against, let's say, the weather data, and maybe other characteristics of the energy market. And then using this data, develop a kind of predictive model to help to forecast when this ESS needs to discharge, when it needs to store, and what would be the best point to do it. So I won't go into too much details. There are a lot of things that you can do and think about. This is a challenge that I think if it works, if you develop a good model, this is something that can be potentially commercialized as well. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Gerard. Yeah, so students who actually miss out on any of the company's sharing, don't worry, because a recording will be uploaded in our website in a week time. So you can always rewatch and actually find out more from the companies themselves later during the Q&A session on whatever inquiries that you may have. So next up, I'll be sharing more about the competition admin details. So the graph on the left is actually our broad timeline. So at the end of today's briefing, you can actually start to submit your proposals as well as your ideas through the submission link that can be found on the competition website. So the competition website link will be available at the end of the briefing. It can be found on our competition website using the same at the end of the page. So competition deadline for submission will be 15 August 2023, 5 p.m. So this is actually a fixed timeline. There will not be any extension. So I will actually advise all students to remember to give yourself some buffer time and not wait till the last minute just in case you face any technical difficulties and your submission ended up being late. To ensure competition fairness, all late submissions will be disqualified. So as part of the submission requirement, you will also need to declare that all members in the team have attended or watched this virtual mass briefing. For participating teams, each team is only allowed to address one company problem statement. So among the 3 statements, choose the one that you're most interested in. And for the team members, you can only participate once. So if you want, so in this case, right, if you are interested in all 3, no choice, you have to choose one that you are the most interested in, as you are not able, as we do not allow each individual to join different teams to address different problem statements. So for this competition, you can use PowerPoint to create a deck of maximum 7 slides. So within the deck itself, you can actually include drawings, diagrams, as well as any mockups to actually illustrate your prototypes for your ideas. And before submission, do remember to convert them to PDF format, because we don't want your diagrams or your drawing to overlay with your text box. So to prevent that scenario where we assess your submission, we want everything to be readable. So do ensure that font size is actually of a suitable font size. Don't make it until too small and we can't read the submission. So as shared, completion fairness is important. So each team submission, do ensure that your slides is actually kept within seven slides. So if you create your PDF and you include maybe, let's say, an introductory slide to introduce the team members, or you have a thank you ending slides, all these will be counted into the 7 slides count as well. So I will actually advise and strongly encourage your proposal to focus more on the content and your ideas within the 7 slides limit. Okay, so to help you along in your submission to actually find out what you can actually put into your proposal, here are some of the pointers that you can actually take note of. So these 4 pointers are things that we actually will be looking out for when we do our assessment. So you should actually include a description just to elaborate more on the proposed solution. Give us some sort of assessment that you have done to actually analyze any technical feasibility and the cost effectiveness and economic viability of your proposed solution. Elaborate briefly on the potential benefits as well as the impact of your proposed solution, as well as bring it down to Singapore context as required by all the problem statement. Okay, so with that, I'll flash this QR code. So this is actually the page where you can scan and you can actually take a look at the submission criteria, as well as any frequently asked questions that we actually uploaded onto this web page. So any question relating to the admin details as well as the problem statements will all be uploaded on our competition website. And with that, we have come to the end of the briefing session. I will now open up the floor for Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please take the time to actually post your question using the Q&A function. This is the only time that you can actually get to ask questions to the company's representative who are here today. So I'll just give you guys a few more minutes to actually post your question. Yeah, while we wait for questions to stream in, may I just check with the company's representative? Do you have anything that you wish to add on to share with the students? We can actually pass this time to you to actually share more with the students before the questions start streaming in. For students who have scanned the QR code, you'll be directed to this page. So this is our competition website. So all details relating to the IHL category, including the broad timeline, as well as the problem statement and the submission criteria, will all be available on our website. So at the end of today's briefing, this link will be converted to the submission link. So you can click on this link, it will direct you to the Form SG page where you can actually upload your PDF submission proposal for our review. And you have to do so before 15 August 2023, 5 p.m. Any of the frequently asked questions, including what is the assessment criteria, etc., can all be found in our FAQ listed on our website as well. At the end of the briefing, within a week's time, we will upload the training materials, including today's recording, as well as any other resources on our page as well. Okay, we have a question from Yishuan. So this question will be taken up by EMA. So just to clarify Yishuan's question, this student asked whether you are supposed to submit the link for your research resources. So I will assume that you are actually referring to your references as well as your research materials. So all these you can actually park it under annex. So annex will not be counted in the 7 slides count. So we will prefer that if you want to submit the link to your research resources, right, please, you can actually consolidate them together and put it under annex. So it doesn't take into your slide count, because 7 slides is actually quite short. So we would rather you to focus on your ideas content as well. Okay, any other questions from students? We will just open up the floor a little longer before we end this session. Okay, just to share, we will not be taking in any questions by email, just to ensure competition fairness and to allow the information to be available to all participants. Unless it's a technical question, technical difficulty question, then we will be replying you via email. So I do encourage you to actually ask a question relating to the competition, or if you have any clarification regarding the problem statements, this will be your only chance. We will keep this room open for a few more minutes. If you do have any question, please use the Q&A function in Zoom. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So there's actually a question from Ding to asking whether the team registration is open. So the team registration registration link will only be open after this virtual briefing. So it's actually not open right now. When you click onto the link, it redirects you to the Form SG virtual mass briefing link. So it will only be updated after this briefing session. Okay, hope that answers your question. There's another question asking to confirm will the proposal link be on the website. So just to check, you're actually asking whether your team should submit the proposal and how to submit a proposal to EMA, right? So you can actually do the submission via a registration link that will be published on our SEGC competition website after this briefing. Okay, there's actually a question asking whether can ESS be installed on water just like solar panels. So I'll direct this question to Jared to actually help to answer the student inquiry.
Sure, thank you for the question, Jaro. Well, actually, there is nothing to stop you from trying to install ESS on water. The key is you need to remember that ESS systems are quite heavy. So you might want to think about either putting it on a vessel, for example. That could be one possibility. But remember that an ESS needs to be charged as well to a conventional power system. So you need to think about how it can be done, but don't let that stop you. I think it's a good idea to think about how you could go beyond land. Even water is a possibility. Yeah, so I'm excited to hear what solutions you might have for this as well. Gerald, hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. There's also another question from Elvin asking whether can you remove or add any teammates after the registration close? So the answer is no. So once the registration link is closed, all teammates that were submitted in the Form SG will be taken as the final team members details. So you won't be able to remove or add any teammates. To share, the minimum number of team members per team is 2, and the maximum number will be 4. So you have to form a team with 2 to 4 participants. Okay.
Hey, Janet. Sorry, Gerald here. Can I just clarify something as well?
Yep.
Just in case there is some confusion, when we talk about the energy storage system, just to be clear that everybody has the same basis, we're talking about 100 megawatts for 100 megawatt hours. So that's the size of the ESS systems we're talking about, just so that everybody understands that's the kind of system we're talking about. Okay.
Okay, any further questions from students? If not, we'll be ending this webinar in 1 minute's time. Okay, we have another question from students. So asking whether is there any recommended platform where we can get the raw data from? So just to share very briefly, under our EMA corporate website, we do have some statistics available called Singapore Energy Statistics. So you can actually use that as a basis of reference to actually find out more information relating to different energy sources. Okay, any further questions from the students before we end the session? Okay, so that's all from us today. Hope this briefing session actually provide an opportunity for you to actually clarify any inquiries, and hope you actually get to understand more what the Singapore energy transition is about. So I'll end the webinar right now, and the recording will be uploaded on our website in a week's time. So the registration link will be open after this briefing, and it will be open until 15 August. So just a last minute reminder, your submission should not exceed 7 slides. So all submission that deviate from the requirements will be disqualified. So this is actually a hard and fixed rule. So just take note of this. Okay, thank you so much for joining this briefing session, and thank you to the company's representative, Gerald Inghui, as well as Liang. Thanks so much for taking the time to actually share with the students more about the company's purpose statement, as well as to clarify their question. Thank you.